Hi, I'm Teresa Candori, class of 1984. I learned a lot of things at Anvil-Cleona High School, but video editing was not one of them, so please bear with me. I wish I could be there tonight, but I'm in Atlanta conducting an empowerment summit with the National Urban League, where I'm the media relations director. The National Urban League is a century-old civil rights organization devoted to the economic empowerment of underserved communities. What does that mean?
Former mayor of New Orleans, now the president of the National Urban League, Mark Morial.
It's a discussion, and the nation needs a jobs plan. We have 14 million people out of work.
The Black National Urban League Policy Institute. National Urban League Policy Institute. Respectable institute.
Very much so.
The black middle class has been set back 30 years by this economic crisis today.
And certainly the National Urban League is that what Congress should be focused on is on jobs and the need for there to be a national jobs plan.
And part of the role that the National Urban League plays is over the years we've developed services to 36 states, 98 affiliates, working with small businesses through things like our Entrepreneurship Center or New Markets Tax Credit Program.
This is my boss, Mark Morial. He's president of the National Urban League and the two-time mayor of New Orleans. And my teachers want to know how I turned out.
You know, Teresa is charming, dynamic. She's a fantastic writer. She's fun to hang out with.
I feel very privileged to be involved in such important work, and I credit my teachers at Anvil-Cleona not only for the ability to be able to do it, but for the awareness that it needs to be done. Before coming to work at the National Urban League, I studied journalism at the University of Pittsburgh. I worked as a newspaper reporter and editor, and I was a press secretary for the state senate and for Governor Ed Rendell. I've gotten to meet and work with some really amazing people. In addition to having a rewarding job, I love living in New York City. I'm the proud mom of a college freshman. He's had a haircut since that picture was taken. And I'm happily married to the love of my life. We spent our honeymoon in London, and everywhere I went I could hear the voice of Miss Joan McCullough saying, "When you visit London, seniors, and you will go there one day." It was great growing up in a small town, especially when you have teachers who prepared you to take on the whole world. And I'll let my congressman, Charlie Rangel, have the last word.
Cheers, Anvil High School in Pennsylvania. Keep up the good work.
Hi, my name is Jody Upton. I graduated from Anvil-Cleona High School long ago in 1987. I now work as a sign language interpreter here in the state of Georgia and also the state of Tennessee. I got my bachelor's degree in sign language interpreting from Tennessee Temple University, and I am signing and speaking at the same time because Mrs. Campbell requested I do that. But it's very difficult to use two different languages at the same time, so maybe my voice or my signing will be awkward. I'm hoping it's the signing because then you all have no idea if it is or not. I grew up in Annville, Pennsylvania, graduated from ACHS, and I remember always wanting to move to a big city after graduation. And later I moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is a very big city. Then I found that when I would travel home to visit my family, that I sort of missed the small town feeling there in Annville. I really missed A&M subs. And then I would go back to Chattanooga and think, wow, I really miss my hometown. Now I live in Ringgold, Georgia. Maybe you've heard about it on the news recently. We had a big E4 tornado completely destroy a town. We are continuing to try to rebuild and improve our city, and we're succeeding. But I wanted to talk today about the teachers that really had an influence on my life. I remember the first day of school, my junior year, Mrs. Campbell, she taught speech class. And the reason I wanted to take up speech class was because I wanted to do the morning announcements. My friends told me I was crazy. Mrs. Campbell, she's a hard, strict teacher. You don't want to take that class. And I said, yes, I want to do the morning announcements. So I took speech class, and I remember the first day of school, I had been feeling sick all day, and speech class was my last class of the day. I remember going to class, and I couldn't do it anymore. I really felt like I needed to lay my head down on my table, and I was scared to because I knew Mrs. Campbell might kill me, but by the middle of class, I had to lay my head down. I had the flu, but I didn't know it yet. And then the next day I was homesick from school. But I remember being scared to death that Mrs. Campbell was going to think I was a lazy student, I was sleeping during class, I was awful, and I hope I proved myself wrong. But I'm hoping she doesn't remember this. But I also remember some of my teachers during my junior and senior years. They were a wonderful influence on me. Mrs. Batchelor and Mrs. Shiflett. I don't know if they've already retired or if they're being celebrated tonight, but I remember the two of them during my senior year. I had the best time with them. They treated us like we were their friends. We had so much fun in that class. I felt like they showed us respect, and it was easy to respect them back. I remember Mrs. Batchelor teaching me to type on the old manual typewriters, and I remember Mrs. Shiflett teaching me shorthand, which of course now we don't use, but those were the two of my favorite classes during my senior year. During my 9th grade year, I remember Mr. Groff. I think, if I'm right, he still teaches there now. Hello, Mr. Groff. I loved him. I kidded with him all the time. He'd give it to me right back. Really, really enjoyed that math class. The only math class I ever really enjoyed. I was hoping that I could show up here today in person, but my job with the theater here in my area, I interpret theatrical productions here. They changed the date of our next production, so I needed to stay here in my town. I'm really, really, really sad that I'm missing out on all the fun tonight, but I want to say thank you to all my teachers who helped encourage me during my school years, and thank you for all the wonderful years of service that you've provided for other students in our school, and I hope you really enjoy and have a wonderful retirement. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Riker of the class of 1987. I'm very sorry I wasn't able to join you on this night of memories honoring our school and teachers, but I'm very glad to offer this video message to let you know I'm with you in spirit. I think all too often we don't appreciate the quality of things around us until sometimes many years later, or at least until we gain a very different perspective on them. Having grown up in Pennsylvania, it wasn't until I moved to Texas after college that I realized I had a great appreciation for trees and hills and topography of any sort that I'd largely taken for granted for the first 22 years of my life. I also think the same about my education at Annville Cleona. Growing up in Cleona, attending a modestly sized school, it was easy for me to think that perhaps I wasn't experiencing the very best that education had to offer. I realized, again, many years later, that there was some narrow-mindedness in that town, but it really existed in my own head. As what I failed to see was that the size of our school meant that teachers had more time for us, had more time to become personally invested in us, and that there was more opportunities for students to become involved with developmental activities and guidance activities that were very, very helpful. I remember spending many hours after school with the school nurse in the Health Careers Club, or learning CPR from Mrs. Gettle. And those are developmental activities that I think served me well as I've gone on to enjoy a very nice career in healthcare. I had the opportunity to attend the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation seminar, and again went on to occupy various leadership positions both in my institution that I work for as well as at the national level of my professional association. I remember particular terrors of going to high school there, such as diagramming sentences for Mrs. Debus or reciting Chaucer in Middle English for Mrs. McCullough. And now, serving as a graduate school professor, I have to say, much to my chagrin, that that sentence diagramming business comes in handy pretty frequently. And Mrs. McCullough, I remember always giving us the advice that it was your use of English by which people would form their first and oftentimes greatest impression of you. And that was advice that I have used and given many, many times since. When I think back on my high school career, I think that my fondest memories of teachers involve Mrs. Campbell. In my mind, she was the consummate teacher, extremely competent in her area, ultra organized, a bit scary stern, but clearly 100% committed to the betterment of her students always. She was a bit scary, but she made learning, even learning Latin, fun, and that's why I went back for 4 years of it. Of course, pursuing a career in healthcare, my knowledge of Latin, both through 4 years of college, 4 years of graduate school, and really ever since, has been a great godsend for me, so I was very, very happy to have had that opportunity and that experience. As I reflected on the successes I've had in life, I've traveled extensively, I've given professional lectures nationally and at various international locations, I've authored textbook chapters, I've had a lot of really wonderful opportunities and enjoyed a really very successful career. But I have to credit much of that on the strong educational foundation that was built for me at Anvil-Cleona High School. So I wish you congratulations on all the success and longevity. Being able to participate in this event was an honor and a great opportunity for me to be able to reminisce about some of my fond memories of high school. I wish you a fun celebration and many, many years of continued success to the teachers, students, and administrators of Anvil-Cleona High School. Thank you.